Okay, don't shoot the messenger. But Mike Shula might not be the only problem that South Carolina is facing. It's Tell the Truth Tuesday. We're going to look into some numbers, and we're not going to defend Mike Shula. We're going to say that he's not the only issue. We'll tell you why. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. I hope everyone's having a fantastic Tuesday. Probably Wednesday now that you're listening to this, if we're being honest. Okay, we got a new mic. It was requested. I hope it's good. I'm excited to test this bad boy out. But before we get into anything, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, guys, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Here's how today's show is going to go. Okay. I hope I'm close enough to the mic. I'm very excited about this thing. So hopefully it's at least a significant improvement. Do me a favor, tell me in the comments if it is, or if there's something wrong with it. I don't know. But in an effort to give you guys a better show, here we are. We're going to talk about some self-evaluation, some self-inventory with South Carolina, where they're at right now. We're going to compare it to last year's team. We're going to compare it to the rest of the SEC. We're going to do a lot of comparing. So strap in for that. It should be a very good episode. And we're going to really get into the fact of whether or not Mike Shula is the only problem. I said this yesterday on the show, and I brought up my buddy who does a tremendous job, and that's Joseph Griffin, and he broke down some film from the offense, and there's some plays that are there, guys. And I think what's frustrating is you kind of, after what happened against Vanderbilt, you expected to lose against Missouri, but even with how bad they played defensively and offensively, you were in a situation where you could have absolutely won that game. And that's what made it even more frustrating, right? We're going to get into all that. We're going to get into some deep dives with the stats and the numbers and all those things. After that, we're going to talk about the schedule release, because they released the full schedule for the next 4 years. Not the dates yet, but all 9 conference opponents that South Carolina will be facing from 2026 to 2029. I got news for you guys. That 2027 schedule, 2026 sets up pretty nice, and we'll get into that as well. But let's talk about it. Mike Shula, is he the problem? There's a lot of people that are frustrated and feel like he should be fired immediately. I will push back briefly and only say this to start. That's how I felt about Dowell Loggins last year. And I bring this up all the time, mainly to tell you guys how stupid I felt afterwards. Not saying that this take about Mike Shula is stupid, but I was adamant. I read the stats. I went through the stats. I poured through all this stuff, wrote it down in my notebook and my number 2 pencil like an idiot, because that's my process. But I write down all the stuff, and it's like, man, they're in the bottom 5 of 23 of 30 major categories in the SEC. I mean, it was awful. And that's the halfway point. We're 4 games in, 5 games into the Shula era as OC. And it is, the numbers are bad. I mean, the numbers are bad. But I don't think he's the only issue. And as you know, I said, Joseph Griffin brought up the other day, there's some plays that you look at and it's like, dang. There's a couple of plays where the play call is correct, and it's not Lenore's not seeing it. It's not, the receiver not running the right route. It's there, and there's nothing but green grass in front of him if Lenore's isn't having to run for his life, or if a left tackle isn't missing a block, or if a running back isn't missing a block. And that part's frustrating. Now, it's equally frustrating to be on the 2-yard line on 1st and goal, and your first play, you're running a play action pass with a 6'3", 240-pound dual threat running back who can run over people. That is frustrating. That is very frustrating. So I get that as well. Let's see here. God, I hope this mic is working. Here are the numbers, okay? And I'll take you through the offensive numbers first. 22.3 points per game. 22.3 points per game. If that sounds low, it's because it is. That is currently, let me pull this up, 15th in the SEC. The only team you're ahead of is Florida. Now, what's scary about that, excuse me, what's scary about that is you're almost last, and you're 7 points behind the next closest team in front of you. Like that should not be the case, right? So that's a concern. You talk about where that compares in the last couple of years. It's about 8 points less per game last year, and it's lower than any other year that Shane Beamer has had since he's been here. So that is an issue. I firmly agree. Here's the thing that is disgusting to me is the rushing. The run game, especially with Lenore Sellers. The run game ranks dead last. You're averaging 80.25 yards per game, and that is dead last in the conference. And that's also 36 yards lower than the next closest team. What's even worse than that is not only are you barely running the ball at all during games, you rank 130th in the country in that stat, but your average yards per rush is 2.59, which is, again, almost a full yard lower than the next closest team. It ranks dead last in the SEC and 131st in the country. That's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. Passing, not really as bad as you would think. Passer rating is whatever. Lenore's has been, I don't think he's been that bad. You rank 13th, 220 yards per game. So that's, I think that you can see in the last game where that can stand and like how good they can be if they can put it together. But you also see where the issues are, where it's like you cannot be one-dimensional in general in this league. And you cannot do that when you have Lenore's throwing for 300 yards in a game and then it resulting in you still not even having 300 yards of offense in the game, which is crazy. Total offense, you have 300 yards per game. That is dead last. Dead last in the SEC. Next closest, 328 yards. That's Florida. We all know how bad theirs have been. The next little tier is Auburn and Kentucky, and those are 383 yards and more. 300 yards per game, guys, is, last year you were 8th, so right in the middle, but you were still averaging over 400 yards per game. It's just really bad. It's just really bad. And it's only been 4 games so far, but that would rank you, that would be the lowest of the Shane Beamer tenure. It's also the only, I'm not trying to have cause for concern because the season's not over yet, and it's still a lot of season left. That ranks lowest for a season average of any SEC team at all for total offense yards per game since Beamer's been here. That's a problem. That's a problem. Yards per play. Currently, 5.34 yards per play. That ranks 15th. I don't think that's a surprise. You're ahead of Florida once again. I think the concern here is this, guys. The yards per play. If you're gonna be a one-dimensional offense, we don't want that to happen. But you got to start figuring out things what are your strengths. And it shouldn't have taken 4 games to get here. It should have never taken 4 games to get here. That's the frustration. Dowell Loggins had such a distinct, hey, this is what we were for the first 6 games. This is what we were for the final 6. And it was night and day. And maybe Shula turns that around. I think the frustration is you have what is, especially after the Missouri game, PFF, a couple other guys doing their latest mock drafts, Sellers at number 1 overall. Imagine having Lenore Sellers, a future number 1 overall pick, and it being on a team that goes 5-7 or 6-6, and hell, 7-5 would be bad at this point. So when you look at some of the things that they're doing or not doing, for a better way to put it, I think there's a lot of blame that goes on Mike Shula. A lot of blame that goes on Mike Shula. There's some things that he's doing well. I tell you what, the run game, the play calling in the run game, if that's Sean Elliott, we got to make some tweaks there. Sean Elliott has been phenomenal at establishing very, very effective and proficient and successful rushing offenses since he's been at South Carolina, when he was at Georgia State as a head coach, like all those things. Whatever schemes they're trying to run right now, guys, get out on the edge. Run Lenoris. Run options. RPO. Do all those things. There was a really good point that somebody made, I think, on Twitter from one of the Gamecock fan accounts that is, it's what we've been screaming about. Remember how we kept talking about the tight ends situation where it's like, hey, what if we just get a little dump off past the tight end? We're going to roll out here and we're going to get the edge rusher make a decision, probably biting on the running back because it's an RPO. We're going to get Lenoris out on the edge where he can run or throw, but we're going to set up somebody on a little underneath route into the flat where you're going to have a tight end or somebody that's open for a 4 to 6 yard dump off pass. And it's an extension of the run game and getting you positive yardage. They ran it with Brian Rowe, I believe, on a play where he came in motion and then play action, Lenoris, they bite on the fake. Lenoris rolls out, hits him. It was like a 15 or 16 yard gain. Never saw it again. That quote from Remember the Titans, the offensive playbook. I only got 6 plays. It's just like Novocaine. You run it long enough, it works. I'm not saying you need to do that, but you got to simplify something to figure out what works. And this is a team you can do it against. Now, we got to take a quick little break. We got to pay some bills. You guys know the drill. Before we do, I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about in the next segment here. And the next segment, we're going to get into not defending Mike Shula and the offense so far, but if we're being honest here, and it's Tell the Truth Tuesday, there's some other glaring issues on this team so far. Glaring issues on this team so far. And we need to get into those as well. So we will get into that when we come back. Before we go to break, I do want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Square, man. The episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. I'd say there are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. I always say Village Idiot. I love how it's tucked away over there in 5 Points. I used to work in the Vista and love going over there as well. But there's just some places around Columbia or Lexington or just around there that always just make you feel like home, right? Whether it's a local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are all places that bring people together. And when the neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood itself also thrives. I tell you what, there's plenty of spots all around Lexington and dives and also nice places as well that I used to love to go to either on South Carolina game day or even for NFL Sunday when it didn't feel like there was as much at stake and I could be around people without yelling and embarrass myself. But you can find all those types of places. And Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Also want to give a quick little shout out to our friends at Game Time. And maybe you're looking for some tickets this weekend. The tickets probably aren't crazy expensive for this South Carolina Kentucky game. I'll tell you what, if you're ever in a situation and you're trying to get tickets to college football games, you know college football's back. We're about to go into month 2. I couldn't be more excited still, even with the slow start for the Gamecocks, for the tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle sometimes than the game itself. And you guys know what I'm talking about. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I tell you what, I've done this before. Creed is going. They're going to go on a concert again. I tell you who I'm going to go see in a couple days, and I'm going to go. We're going to wait until I think it's Thursday, October 1st or 2nd. We're going to wait till the last minute like we always do because at Game Time, you can get better deals as the event approaches. We're going to go see our one of our favorites. It's not a band. It's a performer named Petey. If anybody's a Petey fan, we're going to go see Petey in New Orleans here in a couple weeks, and I can't wait. But take the guesswork, guys, out of buying tickets, whether it's college football or a concert or theater or whatever. Take the guesswork out with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, that's promo code Locked On College for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, we'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks after this. All right. So here's what I really want to get into. And I'm just as frustrated as you guys are about the offense. I don't think that's a secret. But I'm also frustrated with the defense. And they haven't been bad necessarily at giving up a ton of points. And they're in a deficit for a lot of their stats in comparison to the offense. But that's also primarily, I would think, not even partially, but primarily because of just how bad the offense has been. So I'm not going to blame them for that. But just going through some of the numbers here, guys. Scoring defense, 12th in the conference, 20.3 points per game. That's 12th in the conference. I'm going to save rushing defense because it's only going to hurt all of our feelings. Pass defense hasn't been that bad. 10th in the conference. Only allowed 4 touchdowns, also have 4 interceptions. That's not bad. Yards per attempt is 6.7. It's right. Again, it's 10th. The passer rating, you've held your top 10 in the conference in that, but top 10 in a conference is not where this defense is used to being. They've done a decent job at getting turnovers. Like the turnover margin for them, I believe they are in the positive here. And that's also a good thing to have. And it's been a staple of this defense. But at the same time, you're talking about a situation where in the turnover margin, you've had 4 turnovers all year, and all of that came in one game, which means you've had 3 games where you played clean and didn't turn the ball over once. You have you've gained 5. Like, this would be a game where you need to do this early, because we've seen like what South Carolina really needs to do that they haven't done all season, guys. They haven't done all season, and it's really like it's what kind of kick-started us feeling good last year. They need to jump on someone early. Like, jump on someone early and then put your foot on their throat and don't let up. I know that sounds aggressive. You need to jump on Kentucky early and then put your foot on their throat and do not let up, just like you did last year. This needs to be Kentucky, Oklahoma 2024 2.0. Right? They're going to start a sophomore quarterback. It's a true sophomore, Cutter Boley. I think it's his 3rd total start of his career. He started last year against Louisville. Local kid out of Lexington, Kentucky. They're not a good team. South Carolina hasn't been a great team either, but they have been a really bad team. So that's one thing. I think this is a game where you can get some opportunities there. They haven't turned the ball over a ton. Kentucky hasn't. I think they've only lost 2 all season. But they also are a defense that has been ripe for taking advantage of. Okay? You're talking about a defense that currently ranks dead last in the conference, 415 yards per game. They're giving up 5.82 yards per play. Now, South Carolina's given up over 5, which is not great. When you think about a season ago where that ranked, it was definitely less than that. And they were giving up only 316 yards total per game. Now you look at it, and they're giving about 30 yards more per game in that stat. You have an opportunity to take advantage of a really bad defense in Kentucky. What things need to get better? And what things that need to be focused on before the angry mob comes screaming at Mike Shula's door? Missed tackles. The run defense, guys, and you already know it. I don't need to tell you the numbers. I will, but I don't need to tell you the numbers. Like, you're 14th in the SEC in yards allowed per game. Here's the scary part: is now you develop that as a people know that's your weakness. Your opposing teams are running the ball 39 times per game against you. 39 times per game. The 2 losses you've had they've both been 2-score games, 9 points and 24 points. It is 3.9 yards per rush. 3.9 yards per rush. Now, to put that in perspective, the run defense for Carolina last year ranked 4th in the SEC. giving up only 112 yards. You're giving up about 40 yards more than that per game. It's not just that, though. It is where the defense is making contact with runners, how far back they're getting pushed off the line, then the missed tackles, the arm tackles, the lack of effort at times. South Carolina needs to be in a situation against Kentucky where they are playing ahead and playing with confidence. Because I think that if we're being honest, I think there's a part of me that looks at this team and worries, I don't know if they remember how to win the way they won last year. Now, they've done that. They've won games. But I don't know if this team knows how to truly, like when things start going bad and things start going sideways, I don't know if they know how to weather that storm and figure out a way to go win a ball game, because they haven't really been able to do that outside of Virginia Tech. And like, I use that one with caution because the game that they had against Vanderbilt and against Missouri, you saw the lack of composure and the frustration and the anger, like get to a boiling point and a tipping point, and then players start losing their composure. Dylan Stewart's one of them. Love Dylan Stewart. Does so many things for your team. I talked to people around Missouri after that game, in the media especially, and they said that one of the things that the coaches told them afterwards was they were going to run right at him. It's the best way to take away an elite pass rusher. Run the football right at him. Like, get going downhill right at him. And he's great. He's great at being able to pin his ears back and stuff like that. And but it's a different animal altogether when you are getting a guard that's 340 pounds and outweighs you by 100 pounds running downhill at you in a pulling situation. And then you're trying to, figure out a way to tackle a 220-pound back like Ahmad Hardy. So they've got to figure out ways to do that. They've got to figure out ways to get they're off the field a little bit more. And again, I keep going back to stuff, just simple stuff like the sacks allowed. And like, you give up 13 so far because you gave up 5 the other day. That's not the worst in the SEC. Not the worst. Mainly because Auburn gave up 10 last week. But you're going to play a team in Kentucky that's only given up 3. Right? Like how do you figure out a way to affect the game? Because that was like where you started this defense last year. They were really good all over, but like, I mean, Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart were getting after quarterbacks behinds last year. They need to do that again. We need to see someone take over a game, and we need to see them figure out ways to limit being on the field for as long as they're being on the field. I mean, for real. This defense has been on the field for 272 plays so far this season. 272 plays. And here's the thing. The two teams that have only been on the field for more plays, the only two teams in the entire conference, that's Arkansas and Tennessee. Arkansas and Tennessee. If that, like the link there, the reason why that's important is because those teams, Arkansas and Tennessee, are both putting up over 43 points per game. It's the 5th ranked and first ranked offenses in the SEC. One of them is the best ranked offense in the country. They're scoring, and they're scoring quick. So, of course, the defense is out there a bunch. South Carolina's not doing that. The defense is just on the field a lot. Got to figure out a way to get better on third downs. Got to figure out a way to get in more short yardage situations offensively, but you really got to figure out a way just to get the ball back and afford the possibility of getting in those short yard situations. This is the last thing I'll say too, or last 2 things I'll say on this. The third down, you're 15th in the SEC and allowing over 45.7% per game. That is 10% more than a season ago. 10% more. I mean, you're nearly at 50%, guys. And that again would be the highest in the Beamer era. So you've got to figure out a way to correct that. And more importantly, I saw that Vicari Swain made a comment that, they really focused this week on tackling fundamentals and drills. And that's great. I mean, that's great. I hope they did do that. Here's the other part too, guys. This team, they need to practice fundamentals like that. But as a coaching staff and a coaching standpoint, you have found yourselves in a situation where you are going to play like in a lot of second and 15s, third and 12s, and not because the offense is bad, because it is bad, but because you're ranked 15th in the SEC in penalties. 37 penalties through 4 games. That's 9.3 per game. Here's the scary part about Kentucky. Kentucky's only played 3 games. They only had 16 penalties. You've had 21 more penalties, even though you've played another game than them. But you're averaging 4 more penalties per game. You're averaging almost 30 yards, 20 yards more per game in that, but also 4 penalties more per game. That's how you lose to teams that are worse than you. That's how you lose to teams that are worse than you. Cannot happen against Kentucky. Cannot happen against Kentucky. All right, that is gonna be all for today's show. I appreciate you guys. I hope you had a good in time listening to this. We're gonna hold off on the future schedule thing because I've already gone on too long. But that is just the Tell the Truth Tuesday. We're looking at just kind of some self-inventory here, guys. And you know it, but I just want to make sure numbers-wise we're all aware of what's going on. And it can get better. It got better last year. And that's like, I'm not trying to be a sunshine pumper, but that's the one thing I keep holding on to is because I remember just how frustrated I was a year ago and how quickly that was able to turn. Because we went from being like, this is the worst, you got to make a change somewhere, you got to fire somebody, into you're the hottest team in the country, in the SEC especially, and you have a chance to play for the playoff. That's not how any of us feel right now, but it's also not how any of us felt then either. So Kentucky should be the slump buster. That should be what this team is. We'll see if that's what happens. Before we go, I want to give a quick shout out one more time to our friends at Mazda. Listen, Mazda just does we're in the market right now for a new car. And if you are as well, I highly suggest going to Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride. And with more IHS top safety pick awards than anyone else, Mazda is a clear choice for your next automobile. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. That is all for today's show, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or night, whenever you listen to this. We'll be back tomorrow with more Locked On Gamecocks. Until then, go Cox.